What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
UFC from Argentina, headlined by Liz Carmouche versus Valentina Shevchenko for the women's flyweight division championship belt. Liz Carmouche, of course, literally the very first woman to step inside of a UFC cage. She fought Ronda Rousey in the very first ever female fight. Almost beat Ronda Rousey because Rousey, like a lot of women, up until I haven't seen this trend lately, but there was a big trend in female fighters where they would do this throw where they'd like grab your head and then they'd throw you, but then about 75% of the time, the person that got the throw, the takedown, would end up getting their back taken, similar to what happened to Ronda Rousey, where she did that throw in the very first fight in UFC history, very first female fight. And Liz Carmouche got her back, almost got the choke, or at least a neck crank, but ended up losing the fight eventually, obviously. So coming into this fight, I was not counting Liz out. She's also from San Diego, so big ups to her from San Diego. But it ended up being a pretty boring fight overall. Shevchenko really seemed like she was fighting to not lose rather than to win. I mean, you look at like Shevchenko's fight, defending her belt, and then you look at Nunes when she fought Holly Holm. Completely different. Or when she fought Chris Cyborg. Like, there's definitely a difference between fighting to not lose and just fighting to dominate and win. And Shevchenko, for whatever reason, maybe it was the respect she had for Carmouche, but it was pretty uneventful. There was a few moments where she would, kind of throw some combos, but for the most part, it was pretty uneventful for a main event. The co-main was Vicente Luque versus Mike Perry. I'm a huge fan of both of these guys for different reasons. Vicente Luque, just a more well-rounded fighter, but still throws hard punches. Mike Perry, just an entertaining guy to watch in the ring, outside of the ring. He's got a really fun energy, and you could tell he really enjoys fighting. He was going in there, I thought, really patient, throwing heavy shots, but he seemed to be picking his shots a lot better. Seemed to be doing fairly well against Vicente Luque, but Luque ended up just crushing Perry's nose and ended up getting a split decision. But fairly even fight, but it was a decision nonetheless. The fight before that was a decision. There was a lot of decisions in this card. A lot of kind of back and forth grappling. Not a whole lot of fights where there was momentum shift necessarily, where one fighter is doing really well and the other fighter's doing really well. It was a lot of just kind of evenly matched grinding fights. The Ozdemir fight against Latifi, in my opinion, Latifi's kind of just out. It seemed like it would be an easy win. Definitely throws hard. I think he connected a couple times, but he's just like, I don't know. He's definitely a large dude, but for the light heavyweight division, he's one of those shorter kind of stocky guys. And Ozdemir was just throwing great knees and great punches, and just ended up getting a great knockout up against the fence. Will be interesting to see who he fights next. The light heavyweight division, it's amazing now that DC is gone, the division's exciting because there's a champion who's willing to fight everybody in the division. It's kind of similar to Max Holloway when Max Holloway, as champion of the flyweight division, he's takes a lot of pride in being the king of that division and clearing it out versus trying to make money fights and picking and choosing fight, like the Derek Lewis fight with DC was probably, I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. But Ozdemir looked good. The overall fights were pretty decent. I wasn't super excited for this card. I mean, definitely Shevchenko is fun to watch, and I thought maybe Liz Carmouche could get the upset, but it didn't happen. So a little bummed about that. But I could see Carmouche coming back and doing something. It's just Shevchenko just fought a really boring fight, man. And it's something that you see in a lot of champions. Anderson Silva had moments, had fights where he was just really hesitant to do anything, had really boring fights. A lot of people say GSP had boring fights. I disagree. I just thought he was dominating. He was shutting people down. He was making exciting people look unexciting, but he was still pursuing finishes. He was still, landing takedowns, ground and pound. He was trying to win fights, maybe not as aggressively as some people might want him to, but I don't think it was. I wouldn't necessarily compare GSP's boring fights necessarily to this performance from Shevchenko. I don't know. She seemed hesitant, and it ended up being kind of boring. But moving on, there is a pay-per-view next Saturday, UFC 241. Where's this one at? This is going to be from the Honda Center, Anaheim, California. Wish I had tickets to that one. Not really. DC, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic in a rematch that should have happened immediately after the fight. But, DC wanted an easy win. He has the best management team. Because if you look at his record, he's collected a lot of names at very specific times in their career. He's had a couple impressive wins. I mean, obviously the first win over Stipe was impressive. His fight against Gustafsson was impressive. The fights with Rumble just looked horrible. Rumble didn't give him a hard fight. He just tried to do some stupid shit, especially in their second fight. But yeah, I don't think Daniel Cormier is a pound for pound great. I just think he's got really good management. And is able to pick fights. I think Stipe is going to get a win. I don't think he's going to want to clinch and dirty box with Daniel, since that's how he got knocked out the first time. I think he's going to want to probably use more of his footwork, keep good distance, avoid takedowns, avoid the clinch. Unless it's on his terms, I could see him maybe entering in for takedowns of his own. But I think he'll have a better game plan, and I think Stipe is going to be the better heavyweight. Hopefully, Daniel Cormier will lose his championship belt. And the co-main, I'm probably more excited for than the main event, Anthony Pettis versus Nate Diaz. Diaz, obviously, long break since his last fight against Conor. Pettis has tried out all kinds of different weight classes, recently knocked out Wonder Boy. I think Diaz is probably going to get it. Both of these guys kind of similar as far as length of career. Diaz definitely less active recently, but his style is that he's got great he's got a very, similar to Colby Covington recently, except for Diaz is able to finish fights. Instead of Covington just kind of out cardioing people and just kind of constantly moving. Diaz throws and is trying to finish fights, and usually is able to create a little bit more damage. And I think he's going to outperform Pettis. I think Diaz is just better in all areas. But we'll see. It's going to be a fun fight. Yoel Romero versus Paulo Costa. That's going to be a crazy fight. Two guys that are like genetic specimens. Be interesting to see. Then there's Gabriel Benitez versus Sadiq Youssef. And Derek Brunson is back versus Ian Heinisch. I got Heinisch in this one. Brunson has been he beat Theodoro, which isn't a big feather to put in your cap, but whatever. I think Ian Heinisch is going to get it, and we'll see what happens to Brunson after this fight. But it looks like a decent card. It's not like a super stacked card from top to bottom, but for sure the pay-per-view looks enticing, and I'm excited to watch it next Saturday. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out daily. Subscribe everywhere. Buy my artwork over at InspiredDisorder.com and save 10% with coupon code INSPIRED at Ray Taylor for me. Have a great day, everybody. Peace out!